Well, I am Sarah Sumbrum, Artistic Director of Dance Cleveland, and I'm joined today by Gina Gibney, Artistic Director of Gibney Company, and David Shimatakahara, Artistic Director of GroundWorks Dance Theater. Thank you both for joining us today.
Thank you, Sarah.
So I thought it would be great to have kind of an informal conversation. You guys have a long past together and know each other very well. But for our audience members who don't know as much about Gibney Company or about GroundWorks Dance Theater, we wanted to give the opportunity to give a little background, hear some stories about some of those past experiences you guys have had. And for context, we're really excited, Dance Cleveland is, that this year we are partnering with GroundWorks Dance to promote both shows. For those who don't know, we are going to have a Make a Day of It in Akron celebration, the opportunity for people to see two different amazing dance performances in one day in Akron, Ohio. Woo! Yeah, exactly. So we can have people purchase tickets if they're interested still for October 8th. And there's going to be a matinee performance of GroundWorks Dance Theater, followed by an evening performance at 7:30 of Gibney Company. Both happening in Akron. We have some great food promos going on. You can grab a discount at El Patron restaurant. You can grab an ice cream cone, the Gibney GroundWorks duo with both of your favorite ice cream flavors.
What was Gina's flavor? I never found out.
I think we went with the sour cream flavor.
Good.
And David,
yeah,
what
I couldn't decide.
Sour cream.
Sour cream ice cream is amazing, David. Try it. Just try it.
I've never tried it. I'm excited.
It's delicious.
Oh man,
it's like
I've never
frozen
heard
yogurt plus. It's delicious.
Oh.
But I had a hard time selecting. I'm just saying, I think I gave Sarah 3 or 4 ideas. But that was my first choice. It's true.
That's great.
David, what flavor did you pick? I forget.
I think it was pistachio.
I think it was pistachio. Yeah.
At least so yesterday it was.
It sounds good.
Yeah.
So anyone can head to Chill in Akron and grab an ice cream cone in between the shows if you need a little dessert or a pick-me-up before the evening performance. And again, tickets are on sale now. And we wanted to, again, talk about the intersection. So let's go back to the beginning. Gina and David, when did you first both meet? When did your dance paths cross? Because I think what people don't know is that the dance world is very big, but it's actually very small too. So tell us a little bit about that. Whoever wants to go first.
It was in kindergarten, wasn't it, Gina? So we started talking about dates.
You took my blocks and I was not happy. So I started throwing things at you. No, I'm happy to start because I'm so deeply just grateful for this moment, which was, I think Sarah, that back in the late 90s, Catherine Karapides approached me about starting something in Cleveland called Food for Thought. And it was a choreographic development project that also had a very strong community component to it. And Kathy really wanted to make sure that the first cohort of that project was strong. And she persuaded David Shimatakahara, who was still dancing in Ohio Ballet, to be part of Food for Thought and to come and share his work as he was developing not only his creative vision, but his vision for GroundWorks. And so my first memory of David and Amy Miller is Amy's beautiful solo that David had created for her, which was shown and developed as part of Food for Thought. And I found in David and Amy both two artists of tremendous vision and integrity and focus, who really led the way in the Cleveland community and created just such a strong standard and such a strong sense of artistic purpose. And that was the beginning of relationships that can continue to this day. That's my origin story. David, how about you?
Well, and for people who don't know Amy Miller, I know she wasn't able to join us on the call today, but Amy, of course, was a dancer with GroundWorks. But now she is the education director for Gibney, correct, Gina?
Director of engagement at Gibney, yes. Yeah. And she was in the company and she was a director of the company for a period of time. So
Amy was my first dancer, my only dancer for a little while when I first launched GroundWorks, or when we first launched GroundWorks, and my recollection of that first time meeting Gina was indelible because of just what she was doing. I mean, she was so committed to sharing her knowledge, her experience with other artists, and not in a way of showing like, here, I'm going to show you how to do this, or this is it was really about trying to find out what would work given their experience, given the community, just really trying to find out what might work for different artists in different situations in Cleveland. Really a kind of amazing idea to try to put that together in Cleveland at that time. And the community was just, stretching its wings, trying to figure out, what can we do? And I had so many questions, and it was just a wonderful opportunity to really kind of dig into those, and with the help of others. And Gina really kind of created a frame for those conversations to happen in this really amazing and generous way. So yeah, I mean, what a great introduction that was, and an eye-opener for me.
Yeah, and for food for thought, actually, that program went on for several years in a few different iterations, and we're excited on Thursday before the performance of Gibney. We're actually going to do a smaller version, a very small version of Food for Thought in Akron, and kind of, nod our head back to that program and all the connections that it's created and inspiration for different artists over the years. So we hope that the University of Akron students get to enjoy that as well. So wonderful. So that was kind of the beginning. I know, Gina, you ended up choreographing and setting work on David's company. Tell me a little bit about that process. What was that like, having,
more than one?
More than one. How many
Yeah.
were?
Four
Four.
over the years. Yeah.
Wow.
That was such a memorable experience for me, to work with David and Amy, I think, because David and Amy are very much, what I would call, first of all, one of the most extraordinary dance duos that I've ever worked with as a pair of dancers. I know David always laughs and says he's just following Amy, but that's not true, David. That they just were a beautiful, beautiful, like a quintessential dance couple. And also were, I think at that point, ballet dancers who were becoming contemporary dancers. So they had the contemporary heart, the contemporary imagination, but they still had this incredible, impeccable ballet training from their time at Ohio Ballet and prior, just their training. So they were just such a tight team with so much focus and integrity. And I loved working with them. And it kind of spoiled me, to be honest. I didn't find, it was just very unique for me. And also I love working on duets. So I could have had Amy and David in the studio forever, just the two of them, just working on duets, and I would have been happy. I like small scale work, as we talked about the other day, Sarah. So I think the piece that I created that was the most special for me on GroundWorks was the Patsy Cline piece, because it was so different for me. I never in my work with my own company would have worked with a piece of popular music. It was to a suite of Patsy Cline songs, and it was kind of narrative, and David was incredibly great as a performer in it. And it just was, I think, a really, really beautiful collaboration. But there were several, and they were all, and in fact, I think the last piece that I choreographed was during the time with GroundWorks. That was the I don't know if you know that, David, that was the last piece that I created.
Oh,
That's very special.
oh, yes. Drafting foresight. Yes.
Yep.
That's
What a
very
beautiful, beautiful work that was too. Yeah, Gina, well, thank you so much for your words. Just like, what? Really? But I remember the first project we did with you, which I remember you said, I'm really thinking I'd like to work with you on some ideas that eventually I'm thinking of expanding, and there may be, you know, several iterations of this, but let's just work out some ideas. And we were just in the studio just for hours and hours and hours, but just loving it. And for me, I remember in that first experience that a feeling of just, oh, you know, this is how dancers and dance makers can work together. You create this sort of dialogue that was so inclusive in a way that I had never experienced before, coming from ballet, where basically, you know, yeah, just do it, you know, just sort of, the idea of process in making was so well thought through in a way that I just said, okay, this is possible. I'm taking notes, and it helped. I know when Amy and I first started working together, just trying to figure out. I mean, I remember sitting with her in the studio and kind of looking at each other and thinking, okay, so and now what? But to have a way in to investigate movement deeply together. And I think you really sort of set that in motion in my thinking in many ways, because of your process. So that was great.
Love that.
Yeah.
Well, now
That
what you
duet
both,
was several truths. I remember that duet, David. Now I'm having to rethink what I said earlier, but that was a really great process. Sorry, Sarah.
no, what I was just gonna say, you know, again, all these interconnections and you know, David speaking about how you really inspired him. I will add to this. You know, as a child growing up in Cleveland, I watched Ohio Ballet. I think the very first pair of point shoes that I had were not my own point shoes. They were actually Amy Miller's signed point shoes that I would put on my feet and pretend in the mirror.
Incredible.
So that's a fun fact for her. I think that she was one of the first ballerinas that inspired me. And then as I got older and I experienced more contemporary works, I went to GroundWorks performances. Oftentimes it was pieces like you said, Gina, that you had said on GroundWorks. So I remember seeing David and Amy dance together, and truly it impacted me as wanting to pursue dance as a career and getting me to where I am today. So again, I think it's just all the inspiration and paths crossing. It's incredible how that happens. So Gina is not just saying that. You guys were incredible.
They were incredible.
Thank
Yeah.
you. Thank you.
So
Yeah. Always too, I mean, so 2001, I think, was the first time we worked with you. And then shortly after we had always, you brought always that idea of, I want to work in a different way with popular music. And it was, that was also equally just like, and by that time we had Mark Odlowski and Felice Bagley also working with us. And so, yeah, to just sort of expand that out, and I don't know, it was like a lot of partnering that I know that they had not sort of had a chance to really explore, and I think we got some really wonderful ideas in a way that, again, it wasn't like we knew how it was going to turn out relative to the music, because the music was so, you know, there were lyrics, there was content, it was a lot of there was a lot of stuff there already. But I remember the process sort of revealing something else that was really, I thought it was a beautiful piece that got to the heart of Patsy Cline in this really interesting way. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, let's shift gears. Let's talk about what people can expect to see this weekend. Obviously, two different dance companies, but both contemporary dance companies. And we've talked about the intersections and collaborations that you've had together in the past. I will say this upcoming weekend, for example, on the Gibney Company repertoire list, we have a piece by Rena Butler. There's going to be a trio by Rena Butler. And Rena recently choreographed for you, David. So tell me, what was that experience like working with Rena? And, you know, what do you think people can expect to see with her type of work?
I know what she did with us, and I have no idea if you know, Rena is a dynamo, and we had such an interesting residency with her. She came in guns blazing with ideas. The piece she did for us was, I mean, it started with a really simple question that she said, I've been thinking about this, the idea of this expression, a wolf in sheep's clothing. And what does that mean? Like, and how can we think about like these sort of personifications of wolfness, and also the idea of sheep, and how does that come through in our understanding of our roles, the different ways that we shift between those two polarities, which was just like, okay, you know, we're and it was so such rich, a rich place to start off and physicalize and actualize like a whole inner world, and then she's just such an incredible mover, and she was able to be very, very specific with the dancers in terms of the kind of physicality that she envisioned.
And her work this October 8th will also be very physical. The work that she's set on Gibney Company is very physical. It's a trio for 3 males. And I think, like you said, you know, those questions, making the dancers really deconstruct the characters. I think she's doing the similar approach, it seems, at least my take on it, when she's working on the piece that will be performed in Akron. She's really deconstructing King Kong, the character of King Kong, what that means, what that character is like, deconstructing the idea of colonization. And Gina and I talked a little bit about that yesterday. So sounds like her method working with GroundWorks was almost similar to working with Gibney Company. Gina, do you want to share anything about working with Rena Butler with you?
Oh, absolutely. You know, when we expanded the company back in 2020, we were so fortunate to bring Rena in as one of our new company members that we call artistic associates. I knew Rena's career. I followed Rena's career from Abraham in Motion, Bill P. Jones, Hubbard Street, and she was just a stunning performer who I knew was becoming a maker and gaining a lot of momentum as a maker. So early on, we devised a role for her that was a choreographic associate within the company so she could continue. She still wasn't ready to stop dancing. She really has the heart of a dancer, and I think that's what makes her such a great dancer, as David highlighted, that there's a visceral approach and a kinetic approach and a a real groundedness that she brings to her artistic work, her creative work, because she's still very much a physical mover. But just really, we did everything we could as an organization to help her balance this desire to still have a career as a performer, but also take these opportunities that were coming to her to create work either within our company or outside. And she did create Lucis Naturae, which you described it really, really beautifully, Sarah. It's a powerful piece. It's based on ideas. It's a trio for men. And you'll see that visceral strength and groundedness that is so much a hallmark of her own signature. So very excited about that.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's always exciting, I think, when you're able to work with a maker who is still at that sort of intersection of performing themselves, but finding this and tapping into that in their work. It's a really potent time, I think, creatively, and I think we gained a lot from just watching Rena actually demonstrate ideas, as well as working them out on the dancers. But she was able to so clearly, articulate and demonstrate herself physically. That it's wonderful too. Yeah.
So what do you think, I'm curious, what do you think the similarities will be between the two performances? If someone decides to, buy the bundle and see GroundWorks in the morning for the matinee and come to Gibney in the evening, where do you think the similarities will be between the two shows? I know, David, you have a Pearl Ann Porter piece. What similarities do you see between the two companies, or differences, I suppose? Because I think a lot of audience members, if they're not used to going to contemporary dance performances, oftentimes I find that new audience members might think that all contemporary and modern dance is the same, right? They see one thing and they say, oh, modern dance isn't for me, or, oh, I love modern dance, so I know I'm going to love the next thing. And it's not necessarily true. I like to remind people that just like music has all different genres, all different artists, you wouldn't think that all pop music is going to be the same, or all jazz music is the same. So similar, modern dance and contemporary has that variety. So what do you think this weekend people can expect?
Sarah, since I haven't seen David's program, maybe I'll explain our program a little bit, and maybe speak a little bit about some of the ways that I think our models are similar and different, and then maybe David could do the same.
Perfect.
But in addition to the Rena Butler piece that we just talked about, Lucis Naturae, there's also another commission on the piece by a really extraordinary artist, Sonia Taya, which is called Oh Courage. Sonia Taya is a Tony Award-winning choreographer from New York. She won a Tony for her work on Moulin Rouge, and she's a powerhouse. She's also does some commercial work, but she also has a very, very serious concert dance practice. But it's a very powerful, grounded, eclectic style of movement, really physically dynamic. And she basically commissioned a score from the Bengsons, which is a folk duo, really powerful statement, I think, about, and it's not literal, but it touches on kind of the journey through difficulty, the journey through isolation, and the kind of emergence to a place of freedom and triumph and hope. It's created right in the middle of the pandemic. She started working on it in September of 2020. Dancers came to our studio in masks when the building was closed to create this piece. So it has a kind of sense of bravery, courage, and sort of just forging through. So that is on the program, Lucis Naturae. And then also our company also restages works by choreographers, existing works that we've seen that we think will add a voice to our rep. And so the final piece on our program is a really beautiful piece called Bliss by the choreographer Johan Inger, a Swedish choreographer, set to Midwest's own Keith Jarrett, the legendary Cologne concert by Keith Jarrett. So it's a joyous piece, an ensemble piece for 13 dancers, really beautiful, lyrical, hopeful. It floats on the music. So I think, I didn't start my career. David left Ohio Ballet and started a repertory company. I started my path at Gibney as a choreographer, a single choreographer dance company, making work on the company. Our evolution to being a repertory company was much, much farther along in our process. And this most recent evolution to becoming a 12 member, I told you, I like doing duets. I could have just locked myself in a room with two dancers for 30 years, but I really enjoy this latest growth. We now have more dancers than I ever envisioned. We have a beautiful company of 12 artists and are new to the repertory model, but are very excited about it. And what I love so much about this particular chapter is that it has given us the ability to bring together, some superb dancers from all over the world who are beautifully trained, have wonderful creative imaginations, and are just ready to be a palette for either the creation of new works or the reimagining of existing works. And so that's what you'll see in Akron on Saturday night.
Awesome. David.
Oh,
what
I
can we
have to
expect
I
from
have to
GroundWorks?
speak after that. Oh man. But everything Gina said about that philosophy of embracing, this sort of extraordinary discovery of what's possible with dance has always been at the core of GroundWorks philosophy. That was the sort of a simple nugget of our artistic mission. We're going to dedicate ourselves to new work. And I think, we've been really, really consistent about that commitment. And so in our program, I think you asked Sarah, what can they expect? I would say what is the unexpected in any of our programs is really the question I want the audience to come with. And so this particular program has a lot of media in it, media elements. Pearl Ann Porter is a Pittsburgh-based maker who has spent her entire career thinking about improvisation and how to really communicate and create ways of thinking about working with improvisation that are not just anything or discovery, but actually, she calls it investigation as opposed to discovery, because it's very focused and it's very interesting the way she thinks about this. And she's been teaching it now for decades and had this sort of long time career working with jazz musicians. And then thinking about performance too, the whole relationship of how she works, how performance works in relation to audiences, and sort of applying deformalizing that relationship. She has a space, an independent space in Pittsburgh, where they have a regular monthly open-ended jam with live music and improvisation dance. So it was really, really great to have her come and translate these ideas that she spent so many years thinking about onto our dancers. We work with a lot of improvisation in our creative process, but to really, work through her tools, her process was so fabulous. She's also been thinking a lot about projection, and she wanted, when we were talking about what we could bring to her residency, she said, I'd really like, be great if we could work with this idea, low-tech idea, using projectors as lighting sources. And so she's created this work where she's working with a lot of color the title of the piece is "The Virtual Sound of Color." It's a combination of these projected ideas, how that affects the movement, and live music as well. So it's a real ride. And then I had the good fortune of creating a film project the beginning of this year, actually, in partnership with City Music, and it was to Massian's Quartet for the End of Time, and I was really pleased with the way that came up. But I also was really hoping we would have an opportunity to actually perform the choreography live. So I've reimagined the film as a sort of hybrid live performance and film experience. So yeah.
I love all those different multifaceted, you've got projection, you've got film, we've got all different types of music across both different programs. So I think that people attending both will have the opportunity to see dance paired with so many different things. I love that collaborative approach.
Thank you.
Wonderful. Well, is there anything else that you want to share before we end today's conversation?
Gina, are we going to have a beer when you get here?
How about a glass of wine, David? How about a sour cream ice cream?
Sour cream and pistachio ice cream.
Sour cream and pistachio ice cream.
Yeah,
that's right.
I think that it is beautiful, the symbolism of this, Sarah, that, David and I are artists that have sustained a connection over decades and have found ways to support each other and work together, and have shared artists and have shared ideas and have shared issues, been a sounding board for each other. And it's really beautiful. It's one of the really beautiful things about this art form, that it provides these opportunities and these connections to be in a community that is quite extraordinary. So I'm really just so grateful that David is part of my community and I'm part of his.
Oh, thanks, Gina. And thank you, Sarah, for highlighting this connection in this way. I think it's so easy just to go like, okay, well, that's going to happen there and that's going to happen there. But to really, as Gina says, celebrate when these connections come together, and as this has been in so many different ways, sort of this interconnection and rebraiding through different experiences. It's very special, and I'm very grateful to Gina.
I think it's amazing that all roads lead back to Ohio, right? I mean, in dance, you think of New York City, of course. You're in New York now, but when you look back, Ohio creates so many meaningful dance experiences and opportunities for young people, opportunities for our audiences to see amazing contemporary dance right here in Ohio. So I'm very thankful to both of you for showing your artistry and being part of this upcoming October's experiences for people. So thank you again,
Sarah. Thank you.
Thank you.
It's really wonderful.